Okay, so in this video we're going to be covering the installation of the ME221 core into a factory Mazda MX5 ECU. So this ECU has been removed from an MX5. It's still got the chassis mounts and everything on it, which we can leave on during this conversion. And what we're going to do first of all is take the cover plate and the back plate off. So it's a posi drive 1 bit that we use for this. Simply undo the top screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, and lift off the top cover. Okay, exposes the insides of the ECU. Flip the ECU over and then remove the bottom cover. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take off the bottom cover, put it to one side, and this exposes the actual insides of the bottom of the ECU. Now it's worth noting that on some ECUs, this is an earlier version of the ECU, it has 2 heatsink screws as well. They're there, they also need to be undone in order to be able to remove the ECU board. On this version, which I believe is from a later car, it doesn't have the heatsink screws on here, so all you need to do is flip it over again and undo the 6 underside screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, once you've done that, pull out the original core. Now this obviously isn't used, but it's worth keeping as a spare if you ever want to go back to factory. And you can stick it in the anti-static bag that the new ECU comes in. But of course, like I say, for now we're going to put that to one side. And the next thing we do is we remove the new ME221 from its packaging. Okay, so in the package we have a sticker for the case, a 90-degree comms connector, and the board itself. Now this board differs from the retail board in it doesn't have the auxiliary motorsport connector for the extra features, but it is still a fully plug and play ECU that will start, run and drive the engine. Here you can see the inbuilt 21 psi map sensor and obviously the factory plug, and it is of course designed to fit the factory case. Before we fit it into the case, we do need to do one other thing, which is drill a hole for the supplied manifold pressure pipe. And we place this, if this is the front end where the plug was for the factory plug, we're going to drill this about here on the case. So I'm going to take this out to the workshop and put a 7 or 8 mil hole in there now. Okay, so I've popped out to the workshop and I've drilled an 8 mil hole in the back of the ECU here for the vacuum hose to be fitted, for the supplied vacuum hose to be fitted, which connects to the internal map sensor. Now, another thing to notice on these ECUs, and this goes for both versions with the internal heatsink and the version that doesn't have the screw holes for the heatsink, is they have a heatsink on the board here for the voltage regulator for the ECU on the factory ECU, and it's around a 2 mil height difference here, which actually comes into play on the casting. And if you just fit the new ECU core without fitting a washer in there, you end up with the board being slanted. So what we do is we supply a couple of washers. Now when this goes into full launch, we'll actually be supplying a nylon washer, but for now I'm giving you an example using 2 metal washers, which obviously have perfect clearances. There's nothing there for them to actually interfere with, so it's not really a problem. But so these drop onto here first of all, and then we take the ME221 core and we simply drop it on, trying to line everything up like so. And we're only going to be using 4 of the 6 retaining screws because of course the board is a lot smaller, so we don't need to run all 6 screws. It's a case of 1, 2, 3, 3 and 4. Now, when we tighten these up, we don't want to do it too tight. We just want it to be able to retain it because it is clamping against a circuit board. So just nip them up, as so. Okay, and as you can see, the ECU is now installed, and there it is fitted into the factory case. Now at this point we would fit the base cover, and on the covers there are two types. You have the top cover, which is perfectly flat at the end, and the bottom cover, which has this indent in the bottom. So the bottom cover simply drops on like so, and we refit the countersunk screws as such. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and again just tighten these up as usual. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So at this point you can then thread through the manifold pressure pipe, but generally speaking you would do that on the car. It would come through this hole and then just push fit over the end of the map sensor here, over this piece here. And for in the car, for example, we would actually install this like this with the top cover left off, because we of course would want to connect our laptop, and to do that we use the supplied 90-degree adapter. We simply push that onto there like that, and we can now connect our serial lead onto here. Now of course when you put the top cover on, you have to remove this because it won't fit under the cover there, and also on the next revision of hardware, these are actually all populated. This is the motorsport auxiliary connector, and it allows a couple more programmable outputs, some analog and some digital inputs, so you can do some extra feature control and so on. But otherwise, that's all there is to it. Apart from a couple of things to note actually, the ECU itself, because we have one baseboard for all models of the Mark 1 MX5, there are some jumper spaces on here. Now we will pre-configure these for you depending on your model, if you need the 1.8 tachometer drive, if you're using a variable TPS or a switch TPS, and also which version of fuel pump control you're running. But otherwise, you know, that's all done for you, so there's no need to worry about that, but it's just so you know what they're there for. And that's all we have on the installation of the ME221 core for the master plug and play into the factory MX5 case.